This is a CBS News Special Report. I'm Major Garrett in the nation's capital. In just a few moments, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy will address a rare joint meeting of Congress. It will mark the end of a dramatic day here in Washington. This is Zelenskyy's first trip outside of Ukraine since the Russian invasion began exactly 300 days ago. And it comes just a day after Zelenskyy met face-to-face with troops on the front lines. Earlier today, Zelenskyy visited the White House, met with President Biden and key members of his national security team. The president promised more military aid, including at least one long-sought Patriot surface-to-air missile system. Mr. Biden said the U.S. will stand with Ukraine, quote, as long as it takes. Tonight's speech is a chance for the Ukrainian leader to thank Congress and, not incidentally, American taxpayers for their support. And it comes at a time when Russia has been pounding the Ukrainian power grid, plunging millions of Ukrainian civilians into the cold and dark of winter. Lawmakers later this week are set to vote on a year-end spending package that includes roughly $45 billion in additional emergency assistance to Ukraine. Tonight's speech is in the House chamber, as you can see. Vice President Kamala Harris is there, along with members of the diplomatic corps. President Zelenskyy, in a few moments, will be introduced by the House Sergeant-at-Arms, Major General William Walker. With me tonight is Face the Nation moderator and Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Margaret Brennan. Margaret, it's worth noting that when Russia's invasion began 300 days ago, the Biden administration wasn't sure President Zelenskyy's government would last 3 days,
That's right,
let alone 300. Now he is well enough and the country is strong enough to send him here to the United States.
It really is just a statement of incredible resistance, and they have defied the odds. A large part of that is because of Russia's underperformance, overestimating Russian strength, but also because of the intelligence that the United States is funneling to Ukrainian military officials, the weaponry and the funding. So the United States is not a direct player in this fight, but a direct funder of the fight and really leading the way for the West to continue to stand with them, though not directly in the fight itself. But to be clear here, Russia still controls 18% of Ukrainian territory, and it is that bit that the Ukrainians want to push Russia back from. And there is preparation underway, according to Ukrainian generals, for a new offensive by Russia as soon as next month.
And Margaret, this entire trip kept tightly under wraps until just this morning.
It's really incredible to have it kept under wraps in Washington. As you know, not much actually stays secret. They had talked for a while about him coming and finding the right moment, and it is so symbolic that it is this moment in Christmas week as the largest amount of aid is set to pass through Congress to date, this $45 billion, if it is approved in the next few days, but also at that key moment for his people to show that there still is this symbolic alliance, despite the political rumblings that they may be hearing as Republicans are set to gain control. And some progressives and many Republicans have started to say $100 billion. Should that funding continue in the way it has in the future, or will there be more scrutiny of it?
And there's also some conversation about, are the Europeans meeting the American amount? Because it seems to many members of Congress, at least on the Republican side, that the stakes are at least as large for Europe, if not larger than it is for the United States.
Well, certainly for those frontline states, they are, and there is that risk of escalation that so many of the European capitals are afraid of, that they would be the one to take that errant Russian missile, not the United States. But the other thing to say here is the European economy has felt very strongly the impact of this war, as they have had Russian oil and gas supplies cut off, some by choice, some not. So they have felt the ramifications of this, and it has been painful for them. So making some of these choices to stay committed comes at a very real cost. When someone's writing their rent check, they feel it in a real way.
And you talk to ambassadors throughout the region. I have the occasion to on some instances as well. And European ambassadors will tell you, yes, maybe not in dollar amounts, but many European countries, especially those frontline states, have also taken in great numbers of Ukrainian refugees. That's not a line item thing. It's a matter of humanitarian, but it's a gesture that's important and must be calculated just the same.
It is incredible, particularly Poland, a country that was not so welcoming, I will say, to a number of refugees coming from the Middle East and Africa over the past few years, but very much embracing and bringing into their homes some of their fellow Ukrainians. But it really was, as a fairly cynical diplomat said to me, I wonder if the European response would have been as robust if Vladimir Putin hadn't decided to bomb a European capital. It was that terror and that fear, because as you remember, Major, it was right up until February 23rd that European leaders were really doubting that Vladimir Putin would go ahead with this. The United States warned it was coming, and they were unfortunately correct.
Margaret, I will let the audience know that what you see looks very similar to the choreography of a State of the Union address. It, of course, is not one, but what you see now are members of the Senate and House Escort Committee walking down the central aisle of the House of Representatives, which means President Zelenskyy is due to arrive in the chamber at any moment. That choreography, familiar and a head of state, does occasionally get an invitation to come to Congress, but this feels particularly historic because President Zelenskyy knows he's on the brink of seeing one chamber of Congress change political hands and wants to let them know what's on his mind.
And President Zelenskyy has used his celebrity, his ability to communicate in a really effective way for Ukraine to really punch above their weight. And he has often gone directly to European, groups of young people and not to their leaders to appeal for popular support.
Sergeant at Arms, Major General William Walker.
Madam Speaker, the President of Ukraine.
Standing ovation, loud applause for President Zelenskyy. He shook the hand right there of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a significant voice in Republican circles, and a bipartisan ally in terms of existing and quite possibly future funding for Ukraine as it defends itself against Russian aggression.
Thank you so much.
Members of Congress.
I think it's too much.
I think you do. Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of the Ukraine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's too much for me. All this for our great people. Thank you so much. Dear Americans, in all states, cities, and communities, all those who value freedom and justice, who cherish it as strongly as we Ukrainians in all our cities, in each and every family. I hope my words of respect and gratitude resonate in each American heart. Madam Vice President, I thank you for your efforts in helping Ukraine. Madam Speaker, you bravely visited Ukraine during the full-fledged war. Thank you very much. A great honor. Thank you. Great privilege to be here. Dear members of the Congress, representatives of both parties who also visited Kyiv, esteemed congressmen and senators from both parties who will visit Ukraine, I'm sure, in the future. Dear representatives of diaspora, present in this chamber and spread across the country, dear journalists. It's a great honor for me to be at the US Congress and speak to you and all Americans. Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine didn't fall. Ukraine is alive and kicking. Thank you. And it gives me good reason to share with you our first joint victory. We defeated Russia in the battle for minds of the world. We have no fear, nor should anyone in the world have it. Ukrainians gained this victory, and it gives us courage, which inspires the entire world. Americans gained this victory, and that's why you have succeeded in uniting the global community to protect freedom and international law. Europeans gained this victory, and that's why Europe is now stronger and more independent than ever. The Russian tyranny has lost control over us. And it will never influence our minds again. Yet, we have to do whatever it takes to ensure that countries of the Global South also gain such victory. I know one more, I think, very important thing. The Russians will stand a chance to be free only when they defeat the Kremlin in their minds. Yet, the battle continues, and we have to defeat the Kremlin on the battlefield. Yes, this battle is not only for the territory, for this or another part of Europe. The battle is not only for life, freedom, and security of Ukrainians or any other nation which Russia attempts to conquer. This struggle will define in what world our children and grandchildren will live, and then their children and grandchildren. It will define whether it will be a democracy of Ukrainians and for Americans for all. This battle cannot be frozen or postponed. it cannot be ignored, hoping that the ocean or something else will provide a protection. From the United States to China, from Europe to Latin America, and from Africa to Australia, the world is too interconnected and interdependent to allow someone to stay aside and at the same time to feel safe when such a battle continues. Our two nations are allies in this battle. And next year will be a turning point, I know it, the point when Ukrainian courage and American resolve must guarantee the future of our common freedom, the freedom of people who stand for their values. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, yesterday before coming here to Washington, D.C., I was at the front line in our Bakhmut, in our stronghold in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass. The Russian military and mercenaries have been attacking Bakhmut non-stop since May. They have been attacking it day and night, but Bakhmut stands. Last year, 70,000 people lived there in Bakhmut, in this city, and now only few civilians stay. Every inch of that land is soaked in blood. Roaring guns sound every hour. Trenches in the Donbass change hands several times a day in fierce combat and even hand fighting, but the Ukrainian Donbass stands. Russians use everything they have against Bakhmut and our beautiful cities. The occupiers have a significant advantage in artillery. They have an advantage in ammunition. They have much more missiles and planes than we ever had. And it's true, but our defense forces stand. And we all are proud of them. The Russians' tactic is primitive. They burn down and destroy everything they see. They send thugs to the front lines. They send convicts to the war. They threw everything against us, similar to the other tyranny, which is in the Battle of the Bulge. Threw everything it had against the free world, just like the brave American soldiers, which held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Brave Ukrainian soldiers are doing the same to Putin's forces this Christmas. Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender. So here is the front line. The tyranny which has no lack of cruelty against the lives of free people. And your support is crucial, not just to stand in such fight, but to get to the turning point, to win on the battlefield. We have artillery. Yes. Thank you. We have it. Is it enough? Honestly, not really. To ensure Bakhmut is not just a stronghold that holds back the Russian army, but for the Russian army to completely pull out, more cannons and shells are needed. If so, just like the Battle of Saratoga, the fight for Bakhmut will change the trajectory of our war for independence and for freedom. If your patriots stop the Russian terror against our cities, it will let Ukrainian patriots work to the full to defend our freedom. When Russia cannot reach our cities, but its artillery, it tries to destroy them with missile attacks. More than that, Russia found an ally in this genocidal policy, Iran. Iranian deadly drones sent to Russia in hundreds became a threat to our critical infrastructure. That is how one terrorist has found the other. It is just a matter of time when they will strike against your other allies. If we do not stop them now, we must do it. I believe there should be no taboos between us in our alliance. Ukraine never asked the American soldiers to fight on our land instead of us. I assure you that Ukrainian soldiers can perfectly operate American tanks and planes themselves. Financial assistance is also critically important, and I would like to thank you very much. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way. Russia could stop its aggression, really, if it wanted to, but you can speed up our victory. I know it. And it will prove to any potential aggressor that no one can succeed in breaking national borders, no one committing atrocities and reigning over people against their will. It would be naive to wait for steps towards peace from Russia, which enjoys being a terrorist state. Russians are still poisoned by the Kremlin. The restoration of international legal order is our joint task. We need peace. Yes, Ukraine has already offered proposals, which I just discussed with President Biden, our peace formula, 10 points which should and must be implemented for our joint security, guaranteed for decades ahead. And the summit which can be held, I'm glad to stress that President Biden supported our peace initiative today. Each of you, ladies and gentlemen, can assist in the implementation to ensure that America's leadership remains solid, bicameral, and bipartisan. Thank you. You can strengthen sanctions to make Russia feel how ruinous its aggression truly is. It is in your power, really, to help us bring to justice everyone who started this unprovoked and criminal war. Let's do it. Let terrorists let the terrorist state be held responsible for its terror and aggression and compensate all losses done by this war. Let the world see that the United States are here. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, in 2 days we will celebrate Christmas, maybe candlelit. Not because it's more romantic, no, but because there will be no electricity. Millions won't have neither heating nor running water. All of these will be the result of Russian missile and drone attacks on our energy infrastructure. But we do not complain. We do not judge and compare whose life is easier. Your well-being is the product of your national security, the result of your struggle for independence and your many victories. We, Ukrainians, will also go through our war of independence and freedom with dignity and success. We'll celebrate Christmas. Celebrate Christmas, and even if there is no electricity, the light of our faith in ourselves will not be put out. If Russian missiles attack us, we'll do our best to protect ourselves. If they attack us with Iranian drones and our people will have to go to bomb shelters on Christmas Eve, Ukrainians will still sit down at the holiday table and cheer up each other. And we don't have to know everyone's wish, as we know that all of us, millions of Ukrainians, wish the same: victory. Only victory. We already built strong Ukraine with strong people, strong army, strong institutions together with you. We developed strong security guarantees for our country and for entire Europe and the world together with you. And also together with you, we'll put in place everyone who will defy freedom. Put in. This will be the basis to protect democracy in Europe and the world over. Now, on the special Christmas time, I want to thank you, all of you. I thank every American family which cherishes the warmth of its home and wishes the same warmth to other people. I thank President Biden and both parties at the Senate and the House for your invaluable assistance. I thank your cities and your citizens who supported Ukraine this year, who hosted our Ukrainians, our people, who waved our national flags, who acted to help us. Thank you all, from everyone who is now at the front line, from everyone who is evading victory. Standing here today, I recall the words of the President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. which is, I think, so good for this moment. The American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. The Ukrainian people will win too, absolutely. I know that everything depends on us, on Ukrainian armed forces, yet so much depends on the world. So much in the world depends on you. When I was in Bakhmut yesterday, our heroes gave me the flag, the battle flag, the flag of those who defend Ukraine, Europe, and the world at the cost of their lives. They asked me to bring this flag to you, to the US Congress, to members of the House of Representatives and senators whose decisions can save millions of people. So let these decisions be taken. Let this flag stay with you, ladies and gentlemen. This flag is a symbol of our victory. In this war, we stand, we fight, and we will win because we are united, Ukraine, America, and the entire free world. Just one thing, if I can, the last thing, thank you so much. May God protect our brave troops and citizens. May God forever bless the United States of America. Merry Christmas and happy, victorious New Year. Slava Ukraini!
The day after Christmas, 1941, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill addressed a joint session of Congress to outline the stakes of World War II. The conflict then and the conflict in Ukraine are not the same, but it seems more than coincidental, in fact strategic, that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy repeatedly referred to battles in World War II, even America's World War II president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to describe the stakes for the world in this particular conflict. I'm joined at the table by Face the Nation moderator and our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Margaret Brennan. Margaret, your impressions?
You know, it's incredible watching this exchange of flags here, Major, just to think that President Zelenskyy was literally on the front lines of a war zone in Bakhmut yesterday, in the east of the country, and now he is in the nation's capital. He is a wartime president giving what was a stirring address to Congress at a time when our politics doesn't feel very congratulatory of actually getting things done. One of the few points to now has been bipartisan. So the Speaker of the House just said something there.
That American flag flew over the U.S. Capitol today, taken as a prized possession by the leader of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, as part of a ceremonial and symbolically deeply important for Ukrainians exchange of flags, uniting, President Zelenskyy hopes, America to Ukraine, not just for calendar year 2022, but as he said, calendar year 2023, a turning point, and he predicted a year of victory.
It's a big prediction because they are shoring themselves up for what could be a Russian offensive in January or February. And the acknowledgement that while the war has not gone well for Russia, the UK estimates they've lost about 100,000 of their own troops to desertion or death or injury, that Vladimir Putin is continuing to double down. And so this brutal moment that Volodymyr Zelenskyy was describing of not losing faith, he was really seeking a connection there with the American people to hopefully keep that alliance there. He spoke in English. He rarely does that. And he appealed to that sense of holiday spirit, talking about, even though we will be celebrating by candlelight, without electricity, without warmth, we know Americans want to share the warmth of their homes, that holiday spirit with us.
Margaret Brennan, thank you so very much. Our coverage will continue on CBS News Streaming, your local news, and for some of you, on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Major Garrett in Washington.